how about we do this? Yeah, we don't want to break the leg off the piano, or any of the people moving. We don't want to break the leg. So anyway, I like to do this silly improvisation thing. So I was thinking that it's the New Year and Auld Lang Syne, right? Yeah. So maybe I'll try to do that in the style of some classical composers. Maybe everyone says Mozart or Bach. Maybe something a little 20th century. I don't know, but any requests for composing? You want to hear Auld Lang Syne in the style of who?
Philip Glass.
Philip, can we do Philip Glass? Because that would be interesting. Philip Glass, he's minimalist, repetitive, right? So, so how are we gonna make that Philip Glass? I don't know. So. I've never been asked to Philip Glass, so that's good. And any others? I like the unusual Chopin we could do, but that's more common. I'm thinking something like, anybody want to do one or two more of these?
Yes, but I don't know who.
Any classical composers? Mendelssohn. Okay. Let's do Mendelssohn. I'm imagining like one of his songs without words. So, they do one more composer. Then we'll do the real thing. John Philip Sousa. Okay, so let's do a different key now. Classical pieces. I have some gospel at the end, for the gospel fans. I try to satisfy them. let's start with Beethoven again. This is the big project of the last several months, half year. The Beethoven Violin Concerto, arranged for piano by Beethoven. And this is, I'll tell the people who haven't been to one of these crazy things here before, so I'm a pianist who wishes he was a violinist, but is either too practical or too lazy to switch instruments. So what I've done is just found this repertoire that's been arranged from the violin to the piano. Because I live in this fantasy world of listening to Yehudi Menuhin, Jascha Heifetz, Nathan Milstein, all these great violinists. I just can't get enough of it. So, in other words, their recordings are on all the time, and I want to play their repertoire. So I'm going to do the second movement of the Beethoven, the shorter. The first movement is quite long. I've done it a couple of times here. And it's a nice way to start maybe the new year, because the piece is so, how do I put it? To me, Beethoven, especially in this piece, if you could summarize it, it's quiet hope. Where you feel like there may not be any reason for hope, there is hope. Because Beethoven wrote this in 1806. It was a rough time for him for many reasons. One was Napoleon, where he was supporting Napoleon, you heard the story, and then the Third Symphony, the Eroica, was supposed to be called the Napoleon Bonaparte or something. It was going to be. And then Napoleon invaded Austro-Hungary, and Beethoven got mad, and he changed the title. So that's one thing. But the bigger, perhaps, thing was Beethoven knew he was losing his hearing. That's really. And he went through all the stages of grief, maybe. You could read in the Heilige testimony. He talks about his feelings, that he even wanted to end his life at one point because he didn't see any reason to go on living without hearing. But he somehow finds this resolve to keep composing, and he eventually developed the capacity to hear the music internally. He had some hearing, actually. It was interesting. He would use a walking stick with brass, I heard, put it to one of his teeth at rehearsals onto the stage, and he could pick up some sound, but almost none. Well, talk about gospel music, always. I play gospel too. The second movement it's a hymn. It's a slow hymn of hope. That's how I see it, because Beethoven always has this optimism there, I believe. Whereas you could say Schubert maybe doesn't necessarily. There's a joke, maybe I told you this before. What's the difference between the culture of, say, Vienna and the culture of, say, Berlin or Bonn or German, Hamburg or something? And the difference is, although Beethoven, yes, he lived in Vienna, but he was from Bonn, that in Germany, things are very serious, but there's hope. In Vienna, where you have the Strauss waltzes and all, in Vienna things are not so serious, but there's no hope. So, but if that makes sense, I think Beethoven that's what he is. He's very serious, but there's hope. There's always, and in that sense, he's truly an enlightenment. Like an enlightenment fills off or something. He has that hope for the human condition. Okay, I think I'm rambling again. What was I going to say else about Beethoven? Yeah, I think that pretty much is it. So I think we can all relate to this, because there's probably areas in everyone's life where you may not see any reason to have hope, but you have it anyway. And I think that's what Beethoven is. It's too much of a generalization to say that, but I think that's what Beethoven is about, I believe so. Yeah. Beethoven. I promise I'm almost done with the last movement, which is the lively Ländler dance, And I think, I'm trying to play some of the orchestra parts, so I do think that the French horn sounds better on the French horn, but I was trying to, these are right in, right. And it's almost like the hunting horn calls, but far away. That's how I had this whole conversation with my dad once about, because my dad is, my mom's a Russian immigrant from Moscow, but my dad's an immigrant from Virginia, southern Virginia. He's very southern. My friend who's a composer asked me what's your earliest musical memory? It's listening to Ralph Stanley and Bill Monroe doing gospel. I mean, that's what it is from my dad. And so I was talking about classical music with my dad, and it's funny. He said, "Oh, so you say that hunting horn calls?" I said, "Yeah, that's a typical thing. It's in, Mozart too, like." And my dad, he says, "So it's not that different from Southern culture. It's about hunting. That's what it's about saying." I'm going to play. Speaking of Russians and Southern, I'm going to play Tchaikovsky. Melody in E flat, and Tchaikovsky's music, it always evokes ballet music for me, or dance. The other thing is that he loved Mozart so much, because Mozart has this fluidity, this lyricism, that and theatricality too, by the way, that Tchaikovsky just wanted to emulate. Of course, it doesn't literally sound like Mozart, Tchaikovsky, but the smoothness, the endless melody, and that feeling, that does, I think, come out of Mozart. And yes, it's Russian sounding. However, his fellow Russian composers didn't consider him Russian enough, because he didn't use folk music as much as they did. Borodin, Mussorgsky, these guys. But these purity contests are kind of silly. Sounds pretty darn Russian to me. So here is Tchaikovsky, the melody in E flat. He meant this to be part of his violin concerto, but tossed it for something else, and it's a standalone piece. This is, of course, a piano arrangement of that piece, the melody in E flat. century stuff, these short pieces there, you can call them salon pieces. That's what that is. The next one is also like that. I'm going to play a piece called La Cinquantaine, which means the 50th anniversary, by Jean-Gabriel Marie. It's not a name you hear every day. So this is one of those pieces that has that charm to it. And it even sounds like a klezmer piece to me. It has that rhythm, but I don't think it is, as far as I can tell. So when I play it, I imagine, I think I told you this before I played it, that I imagine a couple celebrating their 50th anniversary. The larger suite it's from is called the Golden Wedding. So I imagine this couple talking about the past, and there's some happy memories, some sad memories, and they're all intertwined, because this is a piece that has this sort of, these two opposite feelings at the same time, sadness and joy. So here it is, the Cinquantaine by Gabriel Marie. Now, in a similar vein, I'm going to play Fritz Kreisler. This is his Viennese Caprice. It's a tribute to his hometown, which is Vienna. It's a waltzy lullaby, that's how I'd say it. It has the same kind of, salon feeling to it. It's a thing in the 19th century that we don't have that today maybe so much, a mood. There's a German word, and it's Gemütlichkeit. It means like coziness or something. And I think, I don't know, we that's not how we are nowadays. There are things that are better about today than back then, but maybe we've lost some of that, the subtle charm that they used to have. Anyway, so here is it's an arrangement of, a piano arrangement of the Viennese Caprice by Fritz Kreisler. What else did I say about Kreisler? You can hear his recordings on YouTube. He was such a wonderful character, and you can hear that in his sound. I mean, you hear one note of Kreisler, and there's like sunshine in it. He was a kind person. Not all the classical composers were, but maybe Beethoven, for instance. But yeah, Kreisler was just this warm-hearted guy, and you can hear it in this piece too. So, Viennese Caprice by Kreisler. Now I'm going to play something a little crazier. I need some water for it. I'm going to play the second movement of the Franck Sonata, the César Franck, not the Frank Sinatra, but the Franck. So, yeah, I do that every time. So I'm almost done with the piece. Also, next time I may have the fourth movement ready. I think I've done 1 through 3 here at various times. But at any rate, I'm going to do the second movement, which is a very stormy, I mean, it's like a stormy ocean or something. And Franck was interesting because he was sort of the opposite of Mendelssohn or Mozart. He wrote everything in his later years. And I love that because I think we tend to focus, culturally, we focus too much on the child prodigy thing. But there's plenty of musicians, composers who are the opposite, like Bruckner or Franck. And there's a story, maybe I told you, that Franck, he had this creative explosion in his later years. And the music that came out, it's just very intense. You're going to hear it. His wife got mad at him for that. Because there was a concert, I think it was the quintet or something, the piano quintet. And his wife, after the concert, sort of confronted him and said, "Who is this person that I married? That music is not you. We've been married for 50 years." So I thought that was funny that his wife got mad at him for the music he wrote. But this is probably one of the things that she got mad at him for. The Franck Sonata is it's one of the greatest pieces. I mean, it's probably inspired the fictional violin sonata that's there in Swan's Way by Marcel Proust, because it just culturally, this sonata was everywhere. It was such and still is. Anyway, I'm going to do the second movement, attempt at this wild music. So, yeah. One more thing about Franck, that he was, for most of his life, he was a church organist. And that's, even in this, you can hear the influence of church music, I think. He was, that was his main thing. So, good luck to you and to me. that's Alfred Cortot's version of it for solo piano. It's nightmare. So far I saw this thing, it was on social media or something, that there's two parts of Europe. There's butter Europe and olive oil Europe. You know that? And actually everything I've done so far is butter Europe. I mean, they cook with butter.
Yeah.
And so I hear some Spanish music. Pablo de Sarasate, the Habanera by Sarasate. When I play this, I picture a conquistador or a bullfighter or some. I feel like I need to have a fencing sword. It's just so Spanish. It has this flamenco feel. And Spanish music is a wonderful mix of things because the history of Spain is such a melting pot. I mean, you look, it was Arabic for a long time. There was a large Jewish population too in places like Cordoba. And all of these musical styles mixed together to create that's flamenco music comes out of that, all of that mixing. So this is, Sarasate was this great violinist at the turn of the last century. He had this wonderful big mustache. I don't know, there's nothing to do with it, but it just kind of adds to the whole thing, if you ask me. And this is his habanera, which is a type of dance with roots in Cuba, but it was popular mainly in Spain and France too, for that matter. It's just a whole different mood from the Franc, you'll see. olive oil Europe, I guess. Paganini, who was Italian, or from what's now Italy, Tuscany. It wasn't Italy at the time, just like Germany wasn't Germany at the time. So I've done this before also. This is the 24th Caprice by Paganini, arranged by Liszt and by Busoni, double, you know. And it's a famous piece for solo violin, and this piano version perhaps is less famous. You know, it gets to the heart of this art of arrangement or transcription, which, you know, some of my violinist friends get mad at me. They say, well, why are you stealing our repertoire? Fair point. But the way I see it is in the solo piano version, all of these pieces, they take on their own life. Like they're new pieces, they're different pieces. Especially this, because in this case, Liszt and Busoni, they really changed a lot of things. You know, the Franck quartet didn't change a whole lot from the original, but for example, this is really wildly different from the solo violin original version. So Paganini was this kind of turning point figure in music history, just like Beethoven. They lived around the same time, and just those two, they sort of came out of nowhere, it seems, and everything was different after them. One violinist said Paganini was like the Big Bang. You know, he didn't just came out of nowhere. And Paganini, not only his violin playing, but his lifestyle, he was a sort of a wild man. There were people who thought he was possessed. Yeah, he was quite controversial. So, but the Romantics, they saw something in him. He was kind of their role model, if you will. And that's why people like Liszt and Schumann and all these, they arranged Paganini at the start of their, you know, when they were composing it, because they saw the roots of what they were going to do, I think, in Paganini. So here's the 24th Caprice, arranged by Liszt and Busoni, Paganini. Yeah. maybe one more olive oil, and then some gospel. Is that okay? It's not getting too late. So, everyone's favorite piece, I'll do the Malagueña again, which you guilted me into it. I'm just joking. I'm glad I learned it. The Malagueña by Ernesto Leclona. It's a Cuban guy writing a piece about Spain. Because Malagueña means a woman from Malaga. Malaga is a city in the south of Spain. I've never been. I hear it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a center of flamenco music. So that's what this is. There are versions of this for guitar, versions for voice. I think even the composer himself wrote lyrics to it. But the original is this piano version. There's a violin version too. And this is the only thing I've played this entire night that's actually originally for the piano. Imagine that. All right. All right, so now a little gospel. I'm going to play this is one of these things that you find in like the Cokesbury hymnal that nobody does anymore in the churches. I don't know why. And you may have heard it. Will there be any stars in my crown? Is that, yeah. It's a great old one. And there's a movie from the 50s named after it. It's free on YouTube. It's pretty good. It's a Western, you know. You ever heard of it? Yeah? Have you seen it? Yeah, Will There Be Any Stars in My Crown? And I'm going to play it in an old-time country gospel style. I'll do my best at it. So, just picked it up recently. So
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I'm going to do something, I may have done this ages ago, but I thought it's a good thing to do at the start of a new year. Peace in the Valley by Thomas St. Dorsey. Let's hope that in people's lives and around the world there's peace in the valley. Because he wrote it right at the start of the Second World War. He was riding a train through the Midwest, and I think Pearl Harbor had just happened. And the words that just came to him on the train. The words and the music. Thomas St. Dorsey, he wrote Precious Lord. What a genius, you know. So here it is. Last one, I promise, will be. I'll do Amazing Grace in a similar stuff. So if you want to sing, please. I can't sing, so. Thank you very much. Have a great evening and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay well.
You too.